Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of the Higher Ed Geek Podcast, episode number 63 with Dave Eng. Really cool guy working at the intersections of digital education, game design, and gamification of learning. So he's doing a couple of different things right now in all those fields, and linking out to all of them in the show notes for this episode. But Dave is just a really nice guy, really passionate, really thoughtful. I've talked to him previously for the Student Affairs Spectacular podcast, so I'll link out to that as well. But Dave just had some really insightful things to share about the work that he's doing, and really excited that he's being able to just utilize all the cool stuff that he's into to really just help people and make some really fun games and just help further really high quality digital education through a myriad of different facets. So definitely connect with him and enjoy this episode number 63 with Dave Eng.
I'm glad you said geeky toys, because I also have my my board game collection, which I keep actually in the living room, so you can't see it here, but that is my equivalent of geeky collectibles.
Yeah, I need to get more board games.
No one says they need more board games. You should acquire more board games.
Yeah. Because I've had I've had the ones that I've had for a while, which I love, but I'm also just like, well, I'd like to have more options for people if they come over. So
there you go.
I guess it's the slippery slope, but
I know. Well, what are you playing right now? Do you have any well, tell me what's in your collection.
All I have right now, I guess the most recent was just Ticket to Ride, which I never owned myself. I always kind of play into other people's places, and then Cards Against Humanity, Apples to Apples. There's what is it called? It's Geek Battle. It's a trivia game, and some other card-based trivia games.
Well, Ticket to Ride's it's definitely a solid one. It's the one that most people, when they first get into modern board gaming, that's one of them.
Yeah,
Ticket to Ride.
Yeah, my brother's really into he gets into even more role-playing based board games and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, that's a whole different animal though.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad to be talking to you again. I know it's been a while.
Yeah.
Last time we talked, it was Student Spectacular. Spectacular.
I mean, it'll be cool because I'm revisiting some guests, just people I know that are good for it kind of thing. That are just good guests and definitely fit in with the higher ed geek kind of vibe and stuff. So it'll be great to catch up and everything, and kind of see, because I forget exactly when we recorded last time, but just I guess generally what's happened in the past couple of years or so. But I mean, we'll dive in here if you want to. I'll link back to the prior episode that we did. That was on gamification and stuff, which I'm sure will come up again here, so people can kind of do their homework if they want to listen to the kind of prologue here. But if you just want to start off with introducing yourself briefly and kind of cliff notes, I guess, of your professional journey and how you got to be where you are today.
Sure. So thanks for having me again, Justin. My name's Dave Eng. I am currently an educational technologist at New York University. I also run two organizations. One of them is University XP. It's my business that does consulting with education, games, gamification, games-based learning, and also some game design. And I also run the Job Hacker. I'm the provost there. That is my consulting company on student affairs career development, specifically for entry-level student affairs professionals, more specifically those that are in graduate school right now and are conducting their first full-time job search in their professional lives and also in higher ed. And then most recently, I was appointed as a clinical professor in the Human Applications and Technology program over at NYU, and I'm teaching online teaching and learning. And I am also a professor of practice now at Troy University in their tabletop design program. So that is, those are all what I'm currently doing right now, but my background has been in higher education, student affairs. Student affairs was my second career. I first worked in advertising, but worked mostly in the Northeast in student activities, student engagement, service learning, study abroad, and also some residential life. So that is my background. I think that since we talked last, a lot has happened, and I'm just looking forward to catching up.
Yeah. I think we'll dig in with each of those pieces of your current work because they all sound very cool and a lot of it very properly geeky, which I appreciate. But I guess, because what I love hearing from like people who work professionally within higher ed, even outside, because it's kind of like my world, working with students who are coming up through getting their degrees and such. I'm just curious, I guess, if like anything, and you mentioned like starting out in advertising and maybe kind of like the connective tissue pieces or kind of how you want to take it, but like what were those like formative experiences for you like in college and like those early years that you feel like are still resonating with you, that you still think about, if it's maybe like a piece of advice or a mentor or something that you're involved in? Like what are those kind of like pieces of your origin story that like seem like they kind of are always salient or like always kind of relevant to, even though you've done a lot of different things and really now kind of breaking out on your own with these like different ventures and different things like that? I guess I'm just curious, like, if it's just from like undergrad, college experience or anything, I guess maybe from like those early career days.
Yes, I'm glad you asked that because I saw myself when I went to the University of Hartford for undergrad, that I saw going to college as an opportunity to reinvent yourself. And I know a lot of students that I've worked with in the past and a lot of graduate students that I've mentored see that as well. And there's this like transformative process that I feel has permeated a lot of different stages in my life. So when I went to the University of Hartford, I just knew that I wanted to go to school out of state. And I only got into two schools, Hofstra University and the University of Hartford. So I went to the University of Hartford. And there, the way I summarize it for a lot of people is that college is great, except for the fact that I have to go to class, because everything I was doing that I felt were most memorable was happening outside of class. Like I started my own improv group. I was a Red Cap, which is an orientation leader at that institution. I worked for the student union. That's where I met my mentor, who was the director of the student union and student activities there. I was also the president of my fraternity, and I just loved that aspect of college. And I think that's what got me into student affairs, because I ended up to this point where I asked my advisor, I was like, hey, listen, I think I want to change my major, but I want to change it to something where I can still graduate on time. And my advisor just said, well, you have enough credits to graduate with a degree in communications advertising. You want to do that? And I was like, yeah, sure. That sounds great. Like not even really thinking about it. So that was kind of my career path. I worked in New York City for a little bit in advertising as like a layout editor and copywriter, and I just did not like it. And one of my colleagues and friends, Stacy Ripke, told me about the NYU Student Affairs program. And everything she described to me, I was like, oh, I can do that full time as a job, like student activities, student engagement, student union work, so all of that great stuff. So that's kind of what moved me in that direction. And I changed again. So when I went to college, I was a different person. I changed to an advertising major. Now I was a student affairs professional. And I worked in student affairs for quite some time, over 12 years. And then I've since transitioned again to now not specifically directly working in student affairs, but working adjacent to it. I still work in higher ed. I'm teaching now. I support faculty work. I still advise student affairs professionals. And now I see kind of myself as I strive to be like a modern day Renaissance man, trying to be a polymath and learn as much as possible about as many different fields as possible. And it's easier said than done, but I feel like it's a goal worth pursuing, because for me, being able to understand the world and the people in it is the most important thing for me to get out of my, I guess, time here on Earth, to be really introspective, but like knowing and being able to understand others and how things works is the most important part for me.
Yeah. Well, I imagine like with that point of view, like even like that core of like the learning that you had in your undergrad of like communication stuff, it's like to communicate is to be human, like you have to still be able to like articulate ideas, and whether that's like done through a course or done just like working with other people and colleagues and that kind of stuff. Like, I guess, do you still see some of that kind of stuff like pop up where you were at least able to kind of get that formal education early on that is at least still useful, perhaps as sort of like a like ability, skill set kind of thing? Like, does that still kind of come up?
Yeah. So like I know there's a debate right now about higher education in general and kind of the direction that the field is going. Specifically, like it's debatable about like the cost of education since it's been inflating, and also debate about like kind of the outcomes of it, which are all I think valid points. But and I'm coming from a privileged perspective because I've been able to benefit from, I guess, all three levels of higher education, bachelor's, master's, and doctorate, is that education is important. However, the way it affects everyone is going to be subjective and different. So some individuals benefit greatly from higher ed. Me, I'm really glad I had the opportunities because I wouldn't be able to get where I am today. Whereas other people, it may not be the best fit. Some students are best fit to go to like state schools where they can best afford it. Some of them have the privilege of going to really elite private schools. Some of them could benefit by going to a community college first or a junior college, just seeing how higher ed works for them and going on from there. So I think one of the biggest hurdles to get over right now in higher education is where does higher education fit into the lives of most Americans? For some of them, it's a great boon and it's a great it is a great opportunity for them to take advantage of. And I think that if you are capable and you're willing and you can invest your time and energy into doing so, then you should do it. However, know that it is an investment. It's not just higher education is not a commodity that you just buy. It's something that you have to invest in. And the first person you invest in is yourself.
Yeah. Well, and it's the idea that like, to some people, it's like, oh, I don't even use my undergrad degree. Like it was a waste of time. And it's like, yeah, like you said, it's going to be very like subjective where, the way that I look at it for me, it's like I graduated with a history undergrad degree, but it just very much informed by like contextual understanding of just like the world, that everything kind of had like a cause and effect of why we're here today is just a series of choices and decisions and, consequences and those sort of things. So like there is like a roadmap that we can kind of trace back to see like, oh, okay. Yeah. I mean, like we created this policy, which did this or didn't do that, like it there's always like a context for, anything that exists, and yeah, like you said, you just kind of have to sometimes really like reflect and find that, find what you got, from it, reflecting because like you said, it could be, you found like a mentor or some people it is through like a Greek organization, like finding a community and network and affinity and those sort of things that can just kind of live beyond the bounds of the time that you were at college. But yeah, it's all interesting stuff. I mean, yeah, big questions, and I feel like what I always say, it's just like, man, it's like always like a topic for another podcast. But it is like really good things to think about, and I think it is definitely like what higher education is grappling with. And I hope that we do just see, I think, the value at least of people engaging in this world is like kind of that thing that society should invest in, because I think it can be so meaningful to so many people and just like uplifting them and helping them to figure out like what are your strengths, what are you good at, and how can you kind of contribute and provide value to the world and those sort of things. But so yeah, I mean, you've had like you said, all these kind of formative academic experiences, and now kind of with all of that and the work experience that you've had, you're doing really cool stuff. So I mean, if you can go through each like really quickly, but we could kind of go through each and kind of pause and process or whatever. But like with all the things that you're doing now, like what's really engaging you about, like, I mean, maybe just at the kind of higher up level, like the diversity of things that you're doing, like just the value in that, like what you're getting out of just doing many different things, and then maybe what you're getting out of each of them. Because I guess, some people it is just like the focus is important, just like I'm going to do one thing, do it really well. But I know, a lot of people do also have like side projects. Like they do want to be like, speaking or writing and podcasting, like all this sort of thing. Like I found value of that as like a creative outlet. So I guess, yeah, just talk about that, or just all the current work that you're doing now and kind of what's engaging you and what you're getting out of it.
So I think that the work I'm doing at NYU right now, working in educational technology, has been really great and incisive and interesting because unlike student affairs, I don't work directly with students anymore. I work with faculty members directly. And at the School of Professional Studies, most of our faculty members are subject matter experts, SMEs, SMEs, in different industries. And they are experts. They're top of their field, top of their game, but they may not have ever taught before. and consequently, they may not have ever taught online. So when I work with these different faculty members, it's not only an aspect of describing what pedagogy and andragogy and the specific student experience is, but it's helping translate that course that's living inside of their head right now onto paper and then eventually online, because teaching is not an easy thing to do, and then teaching online for the first time is going to be doubly complicated. So like a lot of the faculty members we work with are incredibly talented and well connected, but when it comes to teaching and learning online, that is an area of challenge and growth for a lot of them. So I think that is that is one of the areas that I enjoy working with most, because all of this great knowledge is living within them, but it needs to be connected through students through these courses that they're teaching. Specifically, working with the job hacker has been very good, because I think that all of the time I'd spent in student affairs, I had always had mentees of some sort, either at conferences, through NYU, my graduate program, through professional relationships, anything else. And for the most part, all my mentees were entry-level student affairs professionals, and they kept asking me the same questions about the student affairs job search. So when I decided to leave working directly in student affairs, I started this company because I saw this as an opening to serve this specific population. While there are companies out there that do executive searches for like directors, deans, VPs, and above, no one is really directly serving entry-level student affairs professionals. Sure, there were like opportunities at events like NASPO, the Placement Exchange, or NACA, or ACPA with some of the programs that they're running, but I didn't really see anyone that was doing anything comprehensive with entry-level student affairs professionals, which is the group that I work with most frequently. University XP is an organization that another consulting business I founded because my doctoral dissertation was on games-based learning, and this was something that I had created because I just thought it would be fun. So for both the Job Hacker and University XP, I'm blogging on a weekly basis. Job Hacker is more applications focused, like what you should be doing in the job search and how to best manage your own job search, whereas University XP is just like, I am just talking because I find what I'm talking is interesting. What I'm talking about is interesting. Like, well, my latest post at University XP was about the ethics of gamification. Like, gamification is already around us in many different formats, but have you really thought about like what is the impact on individual users and players? And I don't know if you've ever seen the Black Mirror episode Nosedive. Have you seen that? Yeah, like that is an application of gamification where there are severe ethical ramifications of using this rating system. If your audience has not seen Nosedive, the Black Mirror episode, I suggest you check it out on Netflix, or you use your uncle's, brother's, father's, cousin's, former college roommates' Netflix account and check it out. But a summary of the episode is that everyone lives in this world where everyone is rated on a 5-point scale, and the things that you can do, the places that you can go, the things that you can buy is all based on your rating. So you're incentivized to have only positive interactions with everyone else. And while that sounds good on its face, it is actually not great in practice. So I enjoy writing about those topics because I think a lot of it is just more of a thought experiment for me than anything else. And then teaching at Troy University and NYU has been interesting so far. I've taught online before. Well, this is different because these are going to be for NYU for professional populations. I'm teaching, I guess, in a meta sense, I am teaching others online how to teach others online in online courses. And for Troy University is interesting because I'm also teaching that class online, but it is a tabletop design class. So it is challenging in order to communicate different aspects of game design, specifically in a medium that is non-digital, and teaching them through a digital medium. So it's challenging so far, but I see it as an opportunity for me to continue stretching in that area that I was talking about with University XP. But I enjoy all of it. I have my hands in a lot of pies right now, so I'm pretty busy, but I do enjoy what I'm doing right now and the direction all of it is taking me.
Yeah, I mean, and it's just like, I think you've curated a lot of knowledge, or it's stuff that you're sort of engaging with, and with stuff like you did for your doctor, like it's like you're not confining it to like, oh, it's just like a book on a shelf or something like that. Like, yeah, it's there. I mean, if somebody literally wanted to read it, I know, typically it's uploaded and sort of like, available for posterity, but you're also like actively engaging people in stuff that you've sort of curated. And I think that's so helpful because it's like so many people like write amazing things for like papers for like, like different programs that they're in and for courses and stuff. But then like nobody ever gets to see them except their faculty member. So it's like, it's like really cool if you're like, yeah, I was thinking about this like sort of, theory of student development or something. And it's like, make it a blog post or like make it a conference presentation or something, like try to get that knowledge and that stuff that you're thinking about out there. And I appreciate that you've like made yourself very available to like, teach courses to engage people on teaching online and tabletop design. And then, like helping people with job search stuff and all of that. This very kind of like, serving people however and wherever they might need it. Cause it's like difficult, like with the tabletop stuff, like you said, to teach it in a digital way, but it's also like, well, if you were to do it in person, then it just, it'd be unfortunate now because we have so many great tools to be able to create high quality digital education. So it's like, okay, well, only if you can come in person during this time to where I am, you can, it's like, so it's just like, oh, it'd be a shame if that was the case. Like it does, it would lend itself to be a even more, kind of tangible and visceral and all that. But, just kind of like looking at it as like an opportunity, to figure out like, okay, well, how would I do this so that I could reach more people, anywhere they are, and how to design, like create like tabletop games and stuff. So,
yeah, one of the things I was struggling with was, I was talking to a colleague, and I was talking about the blog, and I was like, I'm thinking about writing all this stuff, but what if I'm wrong about all, like everything I know about games and gamification, games-based learning? What if I'm wrong and I'm just like spreading misinformation out there, kind of like this imposter syndrome mentality? And what he said was, what if you're right and no one knows? Right? If you're right and no one knows about it, then what is the bigger loss, And now I think I see that in practice now, because I'll write about something on University XP about games or anything else, and people will comment and they'll ask questions, really incisive questions, and not to be combative or anything, but like they're really challenging what I'm thinking and the kind of the conclusions I've made. And I guess my background now in academia, it forces me to cite my sources and make sure that those conclusions are supported. So I guess I may not use everything I learned as an undergrad, but since I graduated from Northeastern with my doctorate, I write and I research every day, and it's something that has become, it's not just an exercise anymore, but it's part of like what I do on a regular basis and part of my identity.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a great way to look at it. And well, I guess then it sort of connects. I mean, obviously, like it's just all stuff that you are really interested in, and you personally find interesting. So you're kind of sharing it and not hogging it or whatever. Like, so I guess like, what are you like geeking out about right now? If there are like really good examples of things that you're like using in your courses to help showcase like concepts or something, or anything like that. I mean, if it's like personal or professional or anything, just like what are you geeking out about right now?
Sure. So one of the projects I'm working on at NYU right now is it's going to be a quote unquote global project. So it's going to affect NYU here in New York, as well as online in all of our global campuses. And it's going to be a university-wide initiative on training others on what microaggressions are and how to work in them as a student, as a faculty member, as an administrator, and how to negate some of the negative effects that happen with it. So it's a project with gigantic scope. And I'm working with one of our VPs on it, but we're creating it from scratch. Meaning, if you've ever worked with anyone that's put together a course before, like normally you kind of have like, what are the learning outcomes for your class? It's something that came down from like the chair or something else. Like this is what the class is, and this is what you're going to get out of like the 8 or 16 weeks. This one, we're creating it from the ground up. So we don't even know, we know the title of the class, but that's pretty much it. So we're creating this content from the ground up. And I really see opportunities here where some of what I know in gamification and games-based learning can be used in application in this process. But again, I kind of have that mentality of, I think this would be great. All my background and my expertise thinks that this would be a great addition to this class. But, I don't know if it'll work. But I kind of rely on that fact. Well, if you don't at least try, or you don't at least try to implement what you think might work, then you'll never know. So that's kind of one of those areas where we're treading on unfamiliar ground right now. And it's kind of exciting. It's kind of scary. And it's going to have gigantic reach because it's going to be, every NYU location around the world in addition to here and also online. So it's huge.
Yeah, Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's like, that's one of those things. I think some of those things are done as like workshops in person for like orientation courses, but it's like, how can we like do that? But again, like digital and sort of asynchronous, like people to engage with this content, make it high quality and make sure that is like, yeah, like we decide what the learning outcomes would be and hope that it achieves that and be able to, measure like completion rates and things like that. Cause I mean, that's like part of the value of it, making it into a more digital learning module versus it just being like a facilitated workshop. But man, that's really cool. I mean, and it's like stuff like that where it's just like those are like very worthwhile things to geek out about. Like I appreciate when people put in like a lot of enthusiasm and energy and all that. So well, I guess I'll jump to like, with all of that, like anything, again, it can be more fun or more kind of like educational or maybe it's a little bit of both or whatever, but like stuff that you're reading, watching, listening to, and just sort of like, what value that's kind of like bringing to your life. And I mean, like any of the stuff that we could, I guess, include in the show notes for people to check out.
Right. So I think that I read a lot of different diverse sources. So like I did at the very beginning read a lot of Chronicle and Inside Higher Ed because working in student affairs, it's good to be appraised of those different aspects there. I write a lot on my blog at universityxp.com. I also read. Let's see. There's EdSurge. There's Evolution. Those are two really good sources for kind of educational technology, information technology. I also read. Let's see. There's a Jasper Jules blog on gamification and games-based learning and basically like ludology, the study of games. I guess in terms of watching, so I am I guess it's over now, Game of Thrones fan. I was watching a lot of Alt Shift X because he does kind of like the incisive review on each Game of Thrones episode. I don't know if you are a Game of Thrones fan or have seen that channel before, but he's like one of my favorite YouTubers that I watched. I don't know what he's going to do now that the series is over, but I have been watching that. And just right now, I guess to get over my Game of Thrones fix, I've been watching Chernobyl on HBO, which I realized that I was like one of the only people that started watching that show that knew how it ended because I for some reason I had studied that disaster, I think, in like high school or elementary school or something else. So I kind of knew what was happening, but everyone else treated it as like, like a drama where you don't know what's going to happen next. And to be honest with you, after watching it, it's a great drama because like kind of like the incisive the incisive thing that I've discovered for a lot of good television and movies is that especially as I've gotten older, I may not always agree with everything that characters do or say on screen, but if I can empathize with them and if I can understand their motivation and their viewpoint, I think that is great film and television. Like I don't have to agree with what they're doing, but I want to understand why this character is doing it and what their motivation is. And I think picking up on those nuances, like in the first couple seasons of Game of Thrones, Westworld is also a great show. I feel like I'm doing like an ad for HBO right now. Game of Thrones, Westworld, Chernobyl right now. They're just all great like character studies on why these people do what they do. And again, I may not agree, but I empathize with their position. I think that's the most interesting thing to watch for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, it makes sense. Yeah. I mean, just watching a lot of television. Yeah. It's like you can start to see like and compare examples of like, yeah, like good examples of that, of like really good character development. And then like you understand their thinking. And then when it's not done well, it's just like very like whiplash of like, why is this character behaving in this? I don't understand. Like they're just like, it's convenient for this episode to make them do this. And the next episode, they'll be completely different. But and I guess like Chernobyl, like I'm forgetting exactly when it happened, but it must be long enough that, yeah, like people forgot that was the thing that happened. And again, as like a history major, of like, I have like a faint familiarity with that. I know that like just that name kind of sticks out to me. And it's like, I know what happened, but it's also like, oh, I don't remember exactly when it happened or like what happened with it. But like, yeah, it's like, I know how it ended, like it's basically like Titanic. It could be people are like, oh, I don't know the exact details, but it's like, I know what happened there. But yeah, I've heard good things about that. That seems like it's, people's like rebound of Game of
From Game of
Thrones. Yeah.
Thrones, yeah,
Yeah. It's
yeah.
like, hey, if you still have your like HBO subscription for like another month, then, check that out. So yeah, I mean, all good recommendations. I think good diversity of stuff there. And, I think, yeah, I mean, it's just like engaging with really good stories. Like you said, it can like really build like the empathy of like, because I think if most people exist in a way where it's like, oh, I wouldn't have made that decision, so that like that person is wrong or that's like bad or whatever. It's just like you would be like, they're choosing to live their life in a way that I would not choose to live mine by the choices that they're making, but I can understand why that they why they would do that.
Yeah, yeah.
And then yeah, I mean, just as like relaxation and release and everything. I mean, it's just like good TV can just be a nice way to unwind too. But yeah, I don't know, and I need to like sit down and just watch through the entirety of Game of Thrones. I fell off like many seasons ago, but
Oh, you did? Oh,
yeah,
okay.
so
Yeah.
I feel like it'll be a nice treat to just go through. But
There you go.
'cause I have a problem with that. Is like if a show is just going on perpetually, I'm like, how long am I going to need to like like keep up with it? Especially like the shows that are on like cable and stuff. They're like 22 episodes long every single season. I'm just like, oh boy, okay, back for another season, another 22 episodes. Like
That's kind of like what Walking Dead is for me. Like I was watching Walking Dead religiously, and then I was like, you know what, I didn't become invested in the characters anymore. I was like, I don't really understand why they're doing this, and I don't care, so I'm not going to watch.
Yeah,
That's why
which
I
I
fell
think
off.
it's still, I don't know when it's going to end, but even that, it's like they have like shorter season and it still feels like they have like fatigue with that show. But
Yeah,
yeah, definitely credit to when like when a show can make 22 episodes feel like not enough, and then certain shows make like 13 episodes feel like too many. It's just fascinating. But regardless, so yeah, we'll definitely have ways. Connect with all the good work that you're doing and all the things that you mentioned as well in the show notes for the episode. But yeah, we'll wrap up the episode as we always do. Me as the eternal optimist, just like to hear what people are looking forward to in their job, life, and or the world. So it can be any one of those things or all of those things, but just yeah, anything that you are looking forward to.
Sure. So I am in the past year, I've been developing this my first tabletop game. I had put it together, kind of like a rudimentary prototype, and I had pitched it to some publishers because my goal was to get a publisher to want to buy the rights for it, and then they would publish the game. They would make and publish and market the game, and I would earn royalties. I jumped into it head first. The game needed a lot more revision, so I'm working through that. I actually I got my first physical prototype of it, so I used a website called The Game Crafter to produce like an actual physical version of the game. I put together some art for it, and it's something to actually have like a game that you have created on your shelf, with your art and your name and everything on it. So I've been putting that together. I've been playtesting it some more. It still needs a lot more revisions, but I feel like I've come a long way since I've conceived it. So I'm really happy to be bringing it to the table. I have a local game group that I meet with every Wednesday, and I play with them, and they are gracious enough to help me playtest my game with them. So I'm going to be doing that tonight, and I'm very happy with the direction it's going in, and I hopefully it'll come to market within the next year. I sincerely hope that happens.
Yeah, that'd be amazing. And I guess like, because I know some people like, I guess crowdfund to like just do it themselves more independently, but like,
Right.
yeah, it also would make sense of just like, it's like, no, I don't want to have to deal with that. Like you're doing like the fun part of like, yeah, I want to like design the game, but then it's like, please go like make it and distribute it and do whatever. But because yeah, I feel like that would be like the parts where I would get kind of like annoyed of just like logistics of like, production and distribution, and be like that's not the fun part for me. Like the fun part is just like, coming up with like sort of the philosophy of the game, the design of the game, like
Exactly.
thinking through that.
Yeah, I did not. I'm not saying that I will never go that route. I just, that's running a Kickstarter campaign is having another full-time job, and I'm not ready to take that.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Well, I mean, yeah, that's definitely a big, pretty awesome thing to look forward to, and I think, just continuing to do the good work that you're doing across all the kind of endeavors that you have, and I'll be very excited to see, what comes of those, and because I've seen a lot of the content that you're putting out, and it's very cool. So, just appreciate your time, all that you shared, and like I said, just really excited to see kind of what comes of all that you're working on. And like I said, people can connect with you down in the show notes. But just have a good rest of your day. And again, thanks for your time.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
This podcast is part of the ConnectEDU Podcast Network, bringing together diverse voices in the higher ed community. Check us out on Twitter at ConnectEDUPod or at connectedu.network. Thanks for listening to this episode of the podcast. Make sure to rate, review, and subscribe so you never miss an episode. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode of the Higher Ed Geek Podcast.